multi-genre author and compulsive teacher, Arlene F. Marks has been part of the writing and publishing world for 50 years and is loving it, especially if she gets to build worlds and birth characters. Her recent published sci-fi fantasy includes a story collection and 10 genre-bending novels, all well received, and there's plenty more to come. Arlene, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone. So I'm going to read you an excerpt from The Bloodstone, which is the second book of the Nash Tyrrell series. It's enjoyable as a standalone, and my giveaway is going to be the first book in the series, signed by the author. Just a bit of background here. The Nash Tyrrell is a race of shape-shifting, essence-drinking alien vampires who have fled to Earth. They're hiding out from a genocide on their homeworld, and they have blended in. They've been with us for 1,500 years. Travis is the half Nash Tyrrell teen. He's got a human mother. He's 15 years old and into hockey. His parents are Ken and Angie. Ken is a full-blooded Nash Tyrrell. His godparents are also Nash Tyrrell, Baron and Vicky. They live on the West Coast. His grandparents are Nash Tyrrell, and that's Maury and Gershred, Shred for short. Travis was fully human until about the age of 15, and now his alien side has come out, and it's no longer safe for him to be living in Ontario. So he is being shipped west to Vancouver to be picked up by his parents and taken to a Nash Tyrrell community in northern British Columbia. Vicky has decided to host everyone who's in Vancouver for a dinner party before Travis arrives. And Vicky and Angie are not getting along very well. Ken and Angie arrived at the door of Vicky and Baron's apartment right on time for dinner. Angie had baked a hostess gift of cookies, something sweet, she explained as she handed them to Vicky to symbolize a long-awaited family reunion. And of course, she added, they'd also been Travis's favorite kind when he was much younger. Both the gift and the gesture were very human, Shred mused. A hostess gift generally signified gratitude and appreciation. Unfortunately, the body language that accompanied this offering was giving it a whole other meaning. Angie's lips were curved in a polite pro forma smile, but her back was as rigid as a rifle-mounted bayonet. Vicky's spine, as she accepted the plastic container, was just as straight, and her expression just as strained. Evidently, she saw this gift for what it was, a reminder of whom she was dealing with, and a warning not to insert herself between the human mother and her offspring. Oh, you shouldn't have, Vicky purred. There were two ways to interpret her words. Neither one put Shred at ease. Baron stepped over, ostensibly to help Ken and Angie hang up their coats, but mainly, Shred suspected, to break the tension of the moment. Baron had clearly understated the animosity between Travis's mother and godmother earlier. No matter how little time passed on the clock, it was bound to be a long and stressful evening. The dining room table had been set for 5. Since everyone was now present, Vicky invited her guests to take their seats, then headed for the kitchen with the cookies. Shred remained on his feet meanwhile to greet Ken and Angie in person before the main event began. Tall and curvy and still practically oozing essence from her pores, Angie appeared not to have aged a minute since the first time Shred had laid eyes on her. Only her hairdo had changed, the dark ponytail giving way to a much shorter style. Like Vicky's, her smile was a little too bright for the occasion, he noted, but there was steel in her expression as well. She was on a mission to reclaim her child, and if that meant making nice with the vampire godmother for a few hours, then that was what she would do. Knowing how Travis already felt about his parents, Shred amended his earlier thought. It was going to be a long and exhausting evening. Ken strode over to stand beside his mate. His posture was protective, and he was clearly on alert, his narrowed gaze sweeping the room. Ken was assessing the threat level. That was good. It was one of the skills he had come out here to learn. And yet there was something disquieting about the way shades seemed to come down over the light in Angie's brown eyes each time she looked at him. The tension between them was like a static charge in the air. Shred made a mental note to take Angie aside later. Whatever was going on, Ken would probably not want to talk about it. He was becoming a warrior, and warriors were stoical. "It's good to see you again, Gershrid," said Angie. She walked over and gave him a brief hug, then stepped aside as Ken came forward to greet him too. "Are you two all right?" Shred asked in a hushed voice. "We're fine," Ken replied. "Just being careful." Without moving his head, he cast a sideways glance at the kitchen door. Meanwhile, Angie stood with her lips pressed together as though to hold back a different response. When she did speak, it was to ask, "How is Travis? Is he looking forward to joining us?" The short answer was no, he wasn't. But Shred wasn't about to tell them that. He led the way to the dining table and waited until everyone was seated before replying, "Travis is 15 human years old. He's the star forward on a U16 hockey team that just medaled in a regional tournament. And for now, he's both loving and hating being half Nashtorel." "For now," Ken echoed, frowning. "Meaning until he gets here and decides how he really feels about it?" "He's not keen on moving west, is he?" Angie said with a sigh. "He'd rather stay in familiar surroundings." "Yes, but we couldn't give him that choice," Shred replied. "Not after he began shape-shifting on the ice in front of all those spectators." Just then, Vicky emerged from the kitchen carrying a plank heaped with Ken's favorite dish, steak tartare. She set it down in the middle of the table, then added a large basket of gourmet breads and fancy crackers. A huge wooden bowl of Caesar salad took up most of the remaining space. Finally, looking like something that had gotten lost on its way to an entirely different meal, a bread and butter dish full of cold cuts appeared next to Angie's place setting. This had to be Vicky's response to the cookies. The three male Nashtorel watched to see what Angie's reaction would be. Smiling with a warmth that didn't reach her eyes, she said, "Thank you, Victoria." Then she picked up her spoon, plucked half a roll from the bread basket, and scooped some of the steak tartare onto it before putting it deliberately onto her plate. All eyes now turned to Vicky, who had also chosen to smile. "I thought you would prefer cooked meat." "And I appreciate the thought. But Ken introduced me to tartare years ago, and I rather like it. So unless you only made enough for 4? Everyone in the room heard that gauntlet hit the floor. As Shred and Baron exchanged concerned looks, Vicky drew herself up and refreshed her expression. "You ought to know by now that I always make more than enough, my dear. By all means, help yourself."